The multiverse promises to change everything you thought was possible in the MCU. Now, after the success of No Way Home and its proof that you can bring in past characters without making it too weird if the story is strong enough, the table is set for even more reintroductions or returns in the future. What forgotten characters can the multiverse bring back into the MCU? Chances are there's a few options on this list that you probably don't want back anytime soon.
What do you mean?
But hey, I promise it could be a lot of fun. Ready? Let's get started.
Here we go.
Okay, picture this scene. It's the multiverse of madness, right? A lot of crazy stuff is going down, and Doctor Strange is doing that arm spinning thing he likes to do. And then all of a sudden, Chris Evans pops out of a portal, and we cheer because we think it's Captain America, but then all of a sudden he yells out, "Flame on!" and it's actually Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch. Boom. Take that, Spider-Man No Way Home. How's that for nostalgia? Oh, what's that? Sorry, everyone. I've just been handed a note saying how Chris Evans' Human Torch was nowhere near on the same level as any of the Spider-Man, and his Fantastic Four movies were kind of bad? Okay, strike that then. Picture this. Suddenly, Michael B. Jordan pops out of a portal, and we cheer because we think it's Killmonger, and then all of a sudden he yells out, "Flame on!" and it's actually Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch. Oh, what? Come on, another note? Okay, apparently Michael B. Jordan's Fantastic Four is even worse than the other ones. Come on, is it that hard to make a Fantastic Four movie? Okay, but seriously, I wanted to start out with the Human Torch because I do think he's a bit of a forgotten character. I hear every day some corner of the internet talking about John Krasinski and Emily Blunt as Reed Richards and Sue Storm, but I don't see Johnny Storm getting the same level of attention. I think that's a shame because the Human Torch could be a great addition to the MCU in general. And I wanted to start with a member of the Fantastic Four because it's pretty clear that the multiverse is how Marvel's first family will be introduced. It just makes the most sense. And even though I was joking in the beginning, how crazy would it be for Michael B. Jordan to step up and be the Human Torch again from a different universe? Hey, we constantly talk about how much we want Killmonger back, and if Michael B. Jordan really does want to return to the MCU in a different capacity, then maybe his version of Johnny Storm could be the Human Torch in this newest iteration of the Fantastic Four. It highlights again just how this multiverse works and helps the general audience understand it a bit better. But then on the downside, we'd probably all have to watch the last live-action Fantastic Four film, and I don't think any of us want to do that. You know who the multiverse should bring back? Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. As much as Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man movies were criticized for being absolutely stuffed to the brim with plot and villains, one thing that was almost universally praised was the chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. Their Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy were truly in love, which made Gwen's big fall all the more heartbreaking. Now, I know that bringing Gwen back is a bit of a cheat because it undermines all that emotional depth that occurred at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2. But again, I think this could showcase the beauty of the multiverse. I want to see Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy come back as a live-action version of Spider-Gwen, which is a multiverse version of Gwen Stacy who became her universe's Spider-Man after Peter Parker bit the dust. So it's a different version of Gwen Stacy that just so happens to look like Emma Stone. I think this is an important step for the multiverse. No Way Home established to audiences that there could be the same characters from different universes, but they look different. Sure, the J. Jonah Jamesons from Maguire and Holland's universe both look like J.K. Simmons, but that's a relatively minor character that I don't think people will think too hard about. Having Emma Stone be Spider-Gwen will help general audiences fully grasp that you can look the same in other universes while not being your same character. Plus, I think it would be really cathartic for Andrew Garfield to meet another version of Gwen that he can form at least a friendship with. And yes, this is a sneaky way to also get Andrew Garfield back into the MCU on a more permanent basis. With the MCU fully embracing magic and mysticism recently with things like WandaVision, No Way Home, and of course Multiverse of Madness, I think it's the perfect time to reintroduce Ghost Rider. And honestly, I'm still torn on whether the MCU should ask Nick Cage back to play the role. Like, there's 95% of me that says no and we should build a more comic-faithful version of the character, but that other 5% of me is insane and is desperate to see Nick Cage come back and go even crazier with it. Hey, they don't even need to CGI abs on him at this point. Just let him be who he is, the spirit of vengeance. But really, I do think that Ghost Rider could be an important part of the MCU going forward. We seem to be taking a step towards slightly darker superheroes with people like Moon Knight, Blade, and the Black Knight, and Ghost Rider would fit in perfectly with them. When people think of Flash Thompson in live action, I think the MCU's Tony Revolori is the one that comes to mind the quickest, and his Flash Thompson is interesting. He's not a straight-up meathead bully, but rather he's more of a comic relief character that's both annoying and a little tragic. And sure, all that works, but you know what? I miss the other Flash Thompson. Yeah, I don't need my Flash to awkwardly try to write a book to capitalize on the fact that he knows Spider-Man or anything like that. No, I want my Flash to look and act like a battle tank. Yeah, of course I'm talking about Joe Manganiello's Flash from Raimi's trilogy. This version of Flash looked like he was held back at least 7 times and was a legitimate bully who wanted to beat up Peter Parker for spilling food on him. And I think the multiverse could bring back this Flash or the actor to play Agent Venom in the MCU. Look, no offense to Tony Revolori, who's hilarious, but I don't see him ever successfully becoming a soldier who's wounded and is eventually bonded with the Venom symbiote to become an elite mercenary hero, do you? No, but Joe Manganiello could play that role perfectly. Having Manganiello play Agent Venom is perfect because not only does it allow Tom Hardy's Venom to continue to do his own thing in his own universe, but it also gives Manganiello a chance to have a significant role in a superhero film after that whole Deathstroke debacle. I'm just saying, if the symbiote is going to come from a different universe, then it might as well be Agent Venom. The best part about the multiverse is that it can bring back forgotten villains and basically give them a second chance. That's where Apocalypse comes into play. Apocalypse was the villain of the X-Men Apocalypse film, and to say that that was a disappointment was an understatement. He ended up looking like a 65-year-old man trying to cosplay Ronan the Accuser's look with horribly cheap results. The movie is a huge dud, which is a shame because Apocalypse is one of the greatest mutant villains of all time. So when the multiverse brings in the X-Men, they should consider bringing back Apocalypse. And there's already a bit of a perfect story connection. Apocalypse's history is actually entangled with Kang the Conqueror. If Kang is really the master of the multiverse like it looks like he is, then it's only a matter of time before he travels to a universe where he can attempt to recruit someone like Apocalypse to join him. You can't really have Oscar Isaac play him because of the whole Moon Knight thing, so recasting is probably the best way to go. Just maybe next time the makeup department should go a bit easier on the blue face paint. Just a thought. Speaking of X-Men, I want to talk about Cyclops for a second. No, Cyclops isn't really a forgotten character, but let's be real. His characterization in the previous movies were so bad that he might as well be forgotten. The OG Cyclops was a waste of a character, and instead of being the awesome, inspiring, tactical leader of the X-Men like he is in the comics, he was regulated to being the awkward third wheel to the Wolverine and Jean Grey romance. Then the reboot happened, and although his character was fine in that, the movies around him were so bad that Cyclops barely made an impact. The point is, Cyclops represents all that is good about the multiverse in that it can take a character who was previously mishandled and give him a brand new lease on life. That's pretty cool. Everyone's been wondering just when Galactus is going to show up, and because his backstory is a bit complicated, I wouldn't be surprised if the big purple planet eater didn't exist in our main universe and instead existed in another universe. That means that most likely his most famous herald, the Silver Surfer, is also from a different universe. And I think this presents the opportunity to do something fun with the Silver Surfer character after the misfire that was Rise of the Silver Surfer. We know how the MCU likes to tweak certain characters and their backstories, so I think it would be interesting if instead of Galactus sending a herald to certain planets before he devours them, he instead is this multiversal being who sends his herald across the multiverse to scope out the new universe before he makes his way over for some prime planet eating. Having Galactus be a player in the upcoming multiversal war that's brewing, I think would give it some incredible stakes. But then again, I also probably would feel weird if they alter Galactus's backstory too much to fit with their story. Okay, having a different universe version of Coulson during this next arc of the MCU would be a lot of fun and sorta poetic. Think about it. Say just when Doctor Strange is getting used to the multiverse, he meets a version of Coulson that works for a big multiverse agency that may or may not be related to the TVA. Then Coulson becomes our entry point as we set up this new normal for the MCU. So much like OG Coulson was a gateway to guide audiences along and act like a connective tissue while the Avengers first united, this new multiversal Coulson could do the same thing again, but on a much bigger scale. Like, maybe multiversal Coulson helps unite Doctor Strange with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four? I know, it's wild, and I'm pretty sure this was a sort of plotline in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kinda, with the whole Sarge arc, but that show doesn't count anymore, I guess. Ego the Living Planet feels like such an anomaly. He was said to be a Celestial back during a time when we didn't really know too much about Celestials in the MCU. But tell me, can you imagine Ego the Living Planet sitting around talking with Arishem? Didn't seem like Ego was on board with the whole creating new Celestials plan, and rather wanted to do it the old-fashioned way, I guess, by birthing a bunch of children around the universe. I just feel like we need to see Ego in another universe actually interacting with other Celestials, because right now it sort of feels like a plot hole, given how Ego acted compared to the other Celestials. There's always talk about wanting to bring Killmonger back from beyond the grave to be the new Black Panther, especially since the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman. So let's play around with that for a second. Let's pretend Marvel actually does that and Killmonger is resurrected and becomes the new king or protector of Wakanda and all that. So where does his story go from there? Well, that's where his father, N'Jobu, could make his grand multiversal return. Michael B. Jordan commanded the screen at all times in Black Panther, but let's not forget N'Jobu actor Sterling K. Brown, who's one of the most talented actors working today. Imagine if this new version of Killmonger met up with a different universe version of his father. How would that go? Would N'Jobu be proud of his son? Or would N'Jobu be angry that his son has become exactly like T'Chaka and T'Challa? That would give this new Killmonger his first real test in accepting this new version of himself, or reverting back to his old ways, and overall it would make for some juicy, compelling drama. Gotta be honest, I like that story a bit more than the idea of Shuri taking over. Shuri is great as a character, but Killmonger as a hero facing his villainous father is just too good of a possibility to pass up. Okay, I wanted to end things on a mutant. I think if you were making a list of top 5 mishandled mutants in the Fox universe, Gambit has definitely got to be up there. I don't know what happened. The casting, the script, and the story around Gambit was just so uninteresting in X-Men Origins Wolverine that it completely neutered the character. Like, we're kind of lucky that movie also ruined Deadpool even worse, so that we didn't have time to complain about how much they screwed up Gambit. Well, the multiverse can fix that. And yes, you could bring in a new Gambit actor, and they probably will, but honestly, they should actually let Channing Tatum do it. Yeah, Gambit is the definition of a forgotten character, because I'm sure we've all forgotten how for a very, very long time, Tatum was attached to a standalone Gambit film. He said it was his passion project, and he worked tremendously hard to get it to the big screen, with directors like Gore Verbinski, Rupert Wyatt, and Doug Liman all attached at one point. But then the scheduling just never worked out, and the movie kept getting pushed as Fox figured out what it was doing, and then of course the Disney merger happened and the Mouse House canceled the project completely in 2019. Tatum had wanted to play the part as early as 2009, so imagine how much that must have stung. The multiverse could reintroduce Gambit into the MCU, and it could give the guy who's wanted to play him forever a chance. How's that not a win-win? He's not a forgotten character, so I didn't want to include him here, but I think there should be a different version of Iron Man out there. Maybe not necessarily played by Robert Downey Jr., and maybe not necessarily a good guy. Can you imagine an evil Iron Man being a big bad of the multiverse? I think that sounds pretty cool.